But hey, it is 1:02 Eastern time now, and it is now time to start. And Mike, since you're here, and I'm really glad you are, I'm going to turn it over to you and ask you to introduce our fabulous guest.
Well, thank you. And Lori, hey, welcome. Good to see you. Sorry I was a little late, everybody. I literally was just doing a 2-hour presentation, so I'm probably sweating a little bit here. It was one of those frenetic 2-hour, I'm way behind time. Oh my God, I'm way behind time. Blah, 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 bringing it home right at the, finish line, but nobody cares. I'm here now. It's so good to see you guys, and welcome everybody for joining us to another Every Other Wednesday. Before I get to Lori, it is official. Of course, maybe you talked about this already, but it's Cinco de Mayo Day. It's International Roller Derby Day, Cartoonist Day, Portuguese Language Day, and for the Star Wars nerds out there, Revenge of the Fifth. As opposed to Revenge of the Sith, which I know.
As opposed to yesterday, which was, of course.
Of course. May the 4th be with you.
With you.
May the 4th. So, Lori, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. And you?
I'm
Besides
awesome.
being all.
Yeah. Oh, I'm good. You look like you're in a law library somewhere. You look like you're in.
I think it is a law library. I think it's like the Library of Congress.
Yes, you look like you could be a congresswoman. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. We are so honored to have you talking about this important topic. This little topic. Yeah, it's not very important. Mental health. This very important topic with us. So, Lori, I'm going to leave it to you for you to tell us about Lori's. Tell us a little bit about you, what you do, and tell us too why you are so passionate, because I know you are, why you're so passionate about workplace culture.
Well, I'm very passionate about workplace culture because everything I do in employee group benefits lends to the culture. I like to say, and you've heard me say it, that benefits is the promise kept from the employer to the employee. It's not just words on the paper. The benefit plan actually puts substance into that. It protects the employee and their family members over the long term in the event that something happens. Risk of loss of life, risk of loss of income, risk of a catastrophic event, mental health falls right in there. So it's all culture.
Yeah, as we always talk about here, everything ties together and all roads lead to culture, as I believe they used to say in Roman times, I think. So Lori, I'm just curious, are there any trends that you're seeing in terms of in the benefits world the last few years that are shaking things up a bit?
Well, in the last year, most especially, there's been a real spotlight on employee assistance programs and virtual healthcare to help people mitigate these trying times. So I think before, if I say that in the ancient world, 2019 and before those ancient times that we can remember and they'll only speak about in the history books, people would say, oh, you know what, those are the soft things. Those are the fluff pieces. Who needs to worry about that? And, then we get hit by a worldwide pandemic. And now the spotlight is on how can we cope? Are we able to be productive in these virtual world? Are we still engaging with one another? How do we maintain this social abundance, but be able to do it safely? So that's where I say the big trend has been in the last 12, 15 months.
Okay. Yeah, very, very cool. So more important than ever, right? Yeah. Hey, and I'm Michael Kerr, by the way, coming to you from spectacular Canmore, Alberta, in the Canadian Rockies. And I need to introduce the rest of the Every Other Wednesday panel. Richard, say hi.
Hi. We said hi a little bit before you came in, as you were rushing in the other side of the room. But I am Richard Haddon, and I'm coming in from the beautiful, not Canadian Rockies of Jacksonville, Florida, where summer has arrived.
How rub it in our faces. What's the temperature?
Yeah, thanks.
Well, I don't know in your language, but we're going to be in the 90s today. So I don't know. The 30s, the 30s your time?
Yeah.
No. The 30s.
Yeah. The 30s, yeah.
Yeah, no.
No, I mean the 30s with a C after.
You're right, Richard. You're right.
Yeah.
Oh, Fahrenheit. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And Sanjay, say hi.
Hi. I apologize if you saw my camera was off, and because we're talking about sort of mental health and stuff, I had a conflict to deal with between the 8-year-old and the 13-year-old that involved lots of curse words. That it was good I was on mute and tears and big.
And you didn't want us to hear them cursing.
Oh, no, I was referring to me with all the tears in person.
He was the one in tears, Richard. Try to keep up. Hey, and how illustrative, if I can use that word, of the situation that so many folks find themselves in, balancing personal work life, kids right there while trying to do a Zoom meeting.
And if I
think
can make the
people can
comment,
relate.
if I can make the comment, that's one of the things that I think is a big blessing within the pandemic is it allows, I don't know if I've said it on the call before, but I think it allows us to become more human. And that if my, kid walks in with their diaper or holding their diaper and they're naked, most people on the call will have a good chuckle, right? Whereas before, this was very unprofessional. Or if the cat walks on the keyboard, it's like, oh my goodness. And all of a sudden we're allowed to say like, okay, yeah, I bring value and I have a particular job, but at the same time, I'm a human and I'm a partner and I'm a father or an uncle or a nephew or a son, whatever it is. And people are more accepting of that. And I think that's going to become a theme around what this whole notion of mental health is about, is more or less about acceptance and becoming what is the norm. Because it wasn't too long ago that having a coach or a therapist or mental health was a curse. It was oh, you what?
It was a sign of weakness or a sign of a deficiency.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
To your point, Sanjay, it's also going to impact, and it is already starting to impact the way people hire. The ability for people to be able to cope in these environments is lending positively to saying, you know what, that's the person that I want to hire. It doesn't matter that they have the kids in the back. Look at the way they're able to juggle and balance and really be open and honest and vulnerable in the moments that matter. And it draws those people together.
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, Laurie. I love that. Where my wife and I are watching the Danish series Borgen about politics in Copenhagen, and they have a female prime minister. And there was just an episode last night where her young son has to come to work with her because he's having some challenges. And I'm not sure what this gentleman's role is in the political scheme of things, but you can see that he's mortified because there's supposed to be the press there that day, and oh, she's brought her kid to work with her. That's so unprofessional. And to me, that seems like the dark ages to me when I think about that.
I look at it because I don't know, I've been known to draw analogies every now and then, but I look at something like, and I'm dating myself here, but watching the show Three's Company. And if you watch the show Three's Company back in the late 70s, early 80s, it was funny and it was accepted and it was no big deal. And now we look back at it and we're like, ooh.
Kind of shocking.
I believe it was Scott Dilbert, Scott Adams, who does the Dilbert cartoons. He said, he has this quote, and if it wasn't him, it's someone very wise. He said, every physical representation of the universe we've ever come up with, every model we've ever come up with, has proven to be wrong. What makes us sure we're right now? Right? The Earth is the center of the universe. The atom is the smallest indivisible particle. So all this stuff we think we know, like, oh, we do this and then it's fixed. In the moment, given the information we have at that time, yeah, it's right and it's okay. But we always need to be able to reserve the right to change your mind, because new information comes, new systems come, populations change, whatever it is, but it's never a static thing. It's a dynamic, fluid motion, and you can't be rigid.
Yeah.
Is that where forgiveness comes in, and being able to recognize that? You just like blew the mind there, but that's a deep thought for a Wednesday. But it does lend to that forgiveness, right? We are moving onward.
Yeah. So I've got some questions for the panel, for the illustrious panel today, of course, on this topic, very important topic of mental and physical health. And on the note of combining these two, I've certainly noticed in my business, as somebody who's spoken at a lot of safety conferences over the last 20 years, that in the 2000s, it was safety, physical safety. Around 2008, 9, 10, maybe, it was, oh, we're not just talking about physical safety anymore. We want to include mental health. It's not just about physical health, it's about mental health. And there was a real profound shift there, which I'm thrilled to see, which I think we do need to see. My first question for the panel, there's a frightening book I read about a year ago called Dying for a Paycheck, that suggests that the number one contributor, the number one cause of the healthcare crisis, if you can use that word, maybe fairly or not so, in the United States, is workplace culture. That dysfunctional, toxic workplace culture is the number one contributor to people ending up in the hospital, to people overwhelming the healthcare system. Do you buy that? Do you think that is a valid argument? Do you think that applies to Canada as well? What does the panel think? Laurie, you want to start?
I do. I think I can't speak to a study per se, but we can speak anecdotally to what we see. And I 100% agree. We have our work-life balance is also our work-life family. And so if one is dysfunctional, it lends that it's going to have an impact on that other side as well. People, jump off the bridge, so to speak, for those financial issues, which tie and bind those two things together. It also comes down to, do they have the ability to have a conversation with somebody who might talk them down off that ledge? And if they don't have that in the workplace, and all it is a dysfunctional, you're never doing anything right, that blame and shame game, then why wouldn't that be a number one contributor?
Yeah.
And I would also say it's not it's not the work. My work certainly is not. My work doesn't contribute to making me unhealthy, and a lot of people's doesn't, especially if they're doing, mind work rather. There's a lot of things, obviously, very, very physical labor that can be damaging. But the way I think about it is it's what it prevents me from doing that takes care of me. And that is exercise and eating right. When I'm super, super busy, I will grab anything that's edible, and that's only a minor consideration. And, and I'll shove it, down my mouth, and I don't take the time to exercise as I should. I sleep less regularly than I should when I'm under a lot of work stress. And so I think that, as much as anything, is what contributes to that. And if we had the ability to, even if we're working hard, eat right, sleep, exercise, do the kinds of things that we know we need to do, I think that would help.
Yeah, to Richard's point, the idea of the opportunity cost is, if you're so tied up into what you're doing, what is it you're not doing? And then I think it was Gandhi that said it. He said, you can't willingly do well in one area of your life while knowingly do poorly in another. If you go back to, who was it, McGregor theory, X theory, Y guy, around that time of organizational behavior theory, they used to talk a lot about the idea of compensation versus spillover. So compensation being, you have, X number of a bucket, and if you take something, if something is going up, then something's got to be going down to compensate for it. Or the other notion of being spillover, which is when one area is going well, it tends to spill over into the others. I'm a believer of they're both right, they're both wrong, and that it's more perception based than anything else. But I'm a big believer of, from a perception standpoint, when we get the momentum going, meaning if I feel that, oh, my physical life is doing really, really well, I'm going to be a more productive partner. And if my partnership is going well and my family life's going well, I'm going to be a better employee or a better manager or a better supervisor. Yeah. I'm going to contribute more. So I think that for so long, we've isolated the buckets, right? It used to be work stays at work and home stays at home, and never the two shall meet. And
as though you go through some magic barrier at 8 o'clock in the morning, right?
Oh, the front door, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it really did used to be that way, I think, and it maybe still is in some places.
Oh, yeah. I absolutely think it still is, but I think that more and more people are aware that go, hold on a second, if I'm eating like garbage constantly, and I'm wondering why I can't think properly. Everything is interrelated to the degree we don't necessarily know, but it's a holistic thing. It's got to be, otherwise it's not sustainable.
Yeah, and
I'm wondering if everything that's happened in the last 14 months or so, with people having more of a window into many employees' home lives, literally a window, a Zoom window, I'm wondering if that is making people a little bit more aware. I don't know. My wife is in a job where she was in the office 9 to 5 days a week, and now she's at home 9 to 5 days a week, and she sees things that and her coworkers and her manager is seen all of us, never met us before. And I think it has helped to blur the lines in some way. So it's certainly not been without its challenges. But I think, again, if we're looking for the silver lining in this, one of those may be that for cultures that are accepting of that, cultures where that's going to resonate and land well, I think it's a positive thing that they see that other side, not just the, put on the makeup and the nice clothes and everything and go into the office.
Yeah, I agree, Richard. And I'm so appreciative of the trend that I've seen over the last, even before COVID, over the last 5-10 years, where more and more organizations are investing in training in speakers to come in and speak about things like sleep habits, like nutrition. These aren't considered directly, things related to our jobs necessarily, right? But that recognition, we need to take care of the whole human being. And I think one of the things we can maybe get into this is the importance of leading from example too, right? And two examples come to mind for me right away when I think about this. One is from SaaS software analytical company that is known as one of the most rocking cultures in the world. How
Cary, North Carolina.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, I visited their beautiful headquarters there, and they make it very clear from the top down that the senior leadership team, the senior managers, when your workday is done, you go home. We don't want to see you working at 6 if your day is supposed to end at 5, because that sends a message all the way down to the organization. We value work-life balance here. So when your day ends, get out of here, go home, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's so important for those messages to come from the top. I was speaking to a oil company a few years ago, and they were talking about health and wellness, and the VP said, you got to imagine high stress job, huge department. He was a VP at a massive oil company, and he said, 45 minutes. I book time off my calendar every day at work to go to the gym and exercise. If I can do it as the VP, nobody in this room has an excuse not to make it a priority, and I'm giving you permission to do that.
What does that say about the culture, Michael? Like, wouldn't you want to work with somebody who's leading by that example? And to your point, Richard, I think what we've really established here is the human side of things, being able to know that Sanjay's at home right now with the 3 kids. And if I happen to hear them in the background, he's a human. He's no longer just a number on a payroll sheet.
The other thing too is the action of what you're executing is not nearly as important as what the culture says is the perception of it. So let's go back to the VPs who cannot stay past 5 p.m. You can look at that and people can look at it going, oh, lazy VPs. Oh, well, they're not taking work seriously, right? But that could be the story, or it could be, oh my goodness, they value our time. So it's not the action, it's the story we put behind it. And what that story is, that is what culture is what do we believe as an organization? Because it's not the situation, it's how you interpret it. If I was doing a presentation right now, I would launch into this particular story about one of my kids, but we won't go there.
We're getting some great comments in the chat too. I don't know who is our chat herder.
Who is our chat herder? I know it's not me.
Lori's the chat herder.
It's not Lori. No, it's one of you two. I thought it was Sanjay.
I love what Stephen says about simple things like changing your clothes when you finish work. Dress for work, not in your casual non-work clothes. I am the worst about that. I need to take that advice. I know I'm like Sanjay. It's like sometimes, and sometimes if I have to be kind of dressed up for a Zoom meeting or something, I just kind of stay in that. I'll go, and my wife will say, "Oh, you're dressing for dinner tonight, too," which we don't usually do. So anyway, and Carol wants to see what I'm wearing. Not a chance, Carol.
Oh, come on, Richard. Stand up, stand up, stand up. Okay. Everyone with me.
Let's move on.
Okay.
What else we got in the chat there? My manager's always been late for work, getting in at 9:30, leaving by 4:30. Well, that's okay. If he shows up late, he makes up for it by leaving early. So I guess that's
right. Yeah. No, giving everyone permission to go home. I knew he worked early, late from home, but my team didn't know for sure. So it said, hey, from top down, I'm not watching your hours. And wow, that is one of the things I've been saying. I said it before this, but especially this year. Are you looking for attendance or output?
Yeah, dictate the outcome, not the process. If you're especially if you're working from home, if you're do your best hours from 2 to 3 in the morning, and you can be as productive in that 1 hour than people are in a day, I don't care. And everyone's done that. Everyone's gone to work and had a day where you've done nothing. You went from meeting to meeting, coffee to tea to lunch to getting in late and leaving early and all that other stuff, and you got absolutely nothing done. And there's times where you couldn't sleep, you got to your computer, and in an hour you did so much in whatever project. It's mind-blowing. So let's stop dictating the outcome, the process. If you must do it this way and stand on one leg and bark like a dog and cover one eye and jump up and down, and saying, here is your job. You know it better than I do. I'm not going to micromanage you. Now, if you're not hitting your targets and outcomes and your output's not there, we have a discussion, but let's not manage to the exception. Let's not start creating rules because Billy 14 years ago messed up, so we're going to implement this moving forward. Let's give people the assumption that they legitimately want to help, that they are trying to be productive, and give them the resources mentally and physically so that they can do their job.
Yeah, I love that. I just read this great quote just this morning in a Harvard Business article. You trusted your employees enough to hire them. Why don't you trust them to do the work where and when they want to?
Yeah.
If you trusted them enough to hire them, trust them to do the work. And as you say, Sanjay, it's about measuring outcome, measuring results.
You also, to that point, sorry to interrupt, Michael, but to that point, sometimes leaders will hire with the expectation that my employees will never do better than me. Why would you set yourself up for that fall in the first place? Why, to your point, Sanjay, let them work because you've hired them to do that job. And if they work better than you, that should be cool. That should be the desired outcome.
I was just chatting with a director at a bank last week, and he's telling me he's fairly a couple years into his directorship, and he said he just got one of his employees promoted to director. And he said that was the first time he's had that opportunity to have someone, rise the ranks to his level, and he felt like it was an accomplishment, and it is an accomplishment. Yeah, you want to create the environment that I want you to do better than me.
I don't think that's just an accomplishment, Sanjay. I would argue that's your job.
Fair enough.
As a leader.
So many people wouldn't see it that way.
Yeah, no. So bring this back around to
Lori.
Except for Lori.
No, I said back to questions for Lori. I'm just here to hear Lori.
Yeah. So back to this topic of mental health and physical health and physical safety and mental health safety in our workplaces. What are some best practices from a cultural point of view that we should be talking about, that we should be implementing in our workplaces? Lori, you want to start us off?
Well, of course, I'm going to say, a killer, but not a killer benefit program that is well designed. You want to build something that actually meshes and marries literally with your corporate and compensation strategies. If you haven't taken those into play and you're just putting the first thing in based on price, you're going to get what you buy. And it's going to be the difference between mentally healthy and sound employees and not. So that's going to be my first thing, is to say, put paid to your words and get the job done. And you wouldn't build a house without looking at the plans and making sure things were level. You want to put the time, effort that it deserves into that. This is something for the benefit of your employees. So you want to build that correctly. I think the other thing to remember too is that we are engaging leaders and we have a natural ability to lead people, or we wouldn't be in the position that we are. Having the conversation though about mental health is different. You talk about the use of humor. Sometimes when you're trying to engage with an employee that is struggling, now you're faced with, how do I have that conversation and not step on the toes for human rights, not step on the toes for workplace safety, not step on the toes for employment standards, and find myself in hot water for something I wanted to do holistically. So for leaders that are looking to how to better have those conversations, one of the things that we do for our clients is we have partnered with Morneau Chappelle and Queen's University, And we have a certificate program. It's a 1 day. And what it does is it's called the Workplace Mental Health Leadership Certificate. And what it does is it helps teach leaders and management. It's not for the employees, it's for the leadership team to look at what is your culture and how are you going to have that conversation that meshes with the way you do business every other way. And you get to practice, you get to learn coping skills for yourself. Because remember, as a team leader, I also have mental health to worry about. So it takes in that holistic, full person, and knowing that that holistic, full person needs to also engage with other people and keep them active and engaged and productive in their field without winding up on the Supreme Court circuit. You know?
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of a situation many years ago, and I think it's what we're saying is that it's not so much the practices or the benefits that you have that drive the culture. It is the culture that influences what benefits you provide, whether it's the actual benefits or just simply the way in which you deal with people who are struggling, whether it's with emotional, physical, whatever, financial, whatever issues. So 35 years ago, I was the manager of a group of programmers in a software development company. How that happened, I will never fully understand, but I was. And there was a fellow on our team. He was an absolute genius. I would say a savant in some ways, but he had a severe mental illness. And everyone, we were very, he was transparent. Everyone knew he had and this was not a stress aggravated kind of mental illness. This was a serious pathology. He eventually was completely disabled. But throughout that period, the CEO of our company, it was a small company, we had about 40 employees. The CEO of that company had such a compassionate look and about that. And this was, again, 35 years ago. We didn't have programs and we didn't have EAP and we didn't have all that. But the CEO said, this guy is really good. We're going to let him work when he can. There's going to be days, there's going to be weeks on end when he's going to be in treatment, when he's not going to be able to work. We're going to keep his job for him because he provides value for the company. As I said, at some point, he became totally disabled because of his illness. But and this was for a period of 2 to 3 years, that it was an issue. And yet the company managed it. It wasn't easy, but the company worked with it.
Yeah, I love it. And I love the fact that you're telling that story from 35 years ago, which kind of goes.
I really remember. Yeah.
Yeah. The notion of best practices. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. We didn't have, employee health benefits, mental health benefit programs 15 years ago, let alone, 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
And so it's that idea of people taking a risk. And I think it's pessimistic of me to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway, is that I believe that in general, most people and organizations are fairly selfish. And that's okay, because what we need to do is explain or help articulate in their value of growing, how it is beneficial. The reason you have mental health initiatives from a business standpoint isn't because it's warm fuzzy and you want to sing Kumbaya. It's because by doing so, you reduce your absenteeism, you reduce your job turnover, you increase your job satisfaction, you increase your bottom line, and the cost you pay to get those benefits are actually brought back to you and then some by lower turnover, better product, more efficiency, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, those are the cutting edge people. Those are the ones that go, okay, it may be weird, but we know this guy can help and deliver, but we see the long-term vision of it. And it's not popular initially, but eventually people buy into it and then it becomes commonplace. Then it's like, oh, well, of course we do that. Like, it's barbaric. Well, yeah, why not? Let the women vote, right? Like when we look back at some of that stuff, we go, like, how stupid were we, right? And again, I guarantee you, we're being really stupid in certain things right now in our lives that we think are just totally normal. And
well, yeah, Sanjay. So yeah.
Speaking of stupid, let's go ahead.
50 years from now, 100 years from now, are we going to look back at things like, oh my God, they worked 5 days a week? Were they insane? What were they thinking? That's just great. What? They commuted for 45 minutes to their jobs? Were they insane? What was wrong with that society, right? All these things we just take for granted now. Yeah, who knows, right?
Yeah.
And Sanjay, thank you for, I think we want to do these things as well, just because it's the right thing to do, too, right? Regardless of the impact on the bottom line. But going back to SaaS, again, I'm reminded of how you know, all the, they will sometimes get criticized for how much they have invested in their benefits and their health and wellness. I mean, my God.
They don't get criticized by their shareholders very much, or by those people who profit from it, because they're doing
maybe criticism
well.
isn't the right word, but people questioning or skeptical, I think, right?
Yeah.
Of how much they're spending. They're going, my God, you spend so much.
It works for them.
But they show the numbers. They go, we spend a lot, but here's what it saves us, and here's what it makes us. So do the math.
It goes to that adage of, you know, when you have a company and they're looking at it and they go, okay, well, that's okay for them. They can afford to do that. And that larger, very successful company will look at it and say, we weren't always this big and we weren't always this successful, but we understood we can't afford not to do it. And if we were going to reach that goal, if we were going to reach the vision of our company, we needed to walk the walk, not just talk it.
Yeah. Well, well said.
Wait,
so
chat box. A couple questions. One is all good ideas, but I'm in the service business. 75% of our employees work based on hours. So if the other group has too much flexibility, it can create conflict. What do you guys think about that?
I like the but, right? That's what I'm going for here, is that there's always a but on why you can't do it. Look at it with intention and look at it with strategy, not to tell you how to do your business, sorry, but you like get rid of that but and say, how can I apply that to this particular workforce that is in the service industry, that is based on hours, and how can I get them engaged?
Yeah. And to my question, when I said, are you looking for attendance or are you looking for output? In that situation, you're looking for attendance. And yet how can seriously, and yet how can you make everybody feel good about what they're doing? And I don't know, maybe that is being very clear up front about what that is, and also maybe providing flexibility and opportunities then to move, and I'm not saying promote, I'm saying move into a responsibility that is more flexible after a certain period of time, which may work for people at different phases of their lives.
The reality too is there's a lot of technology that allows us to do that, right? You have automated attendance and you have AI and chat boxes and stuff. And so if people are working in the morning, you can set up a call for a quote unquote more reasonable time. And if everyone is working from midnight to 4, you shift. You got a new shift. That's where the bulk of your customers are. I mean, that's the whole thing with sales, is you go to where the customer is. And if they're all over the place, you have to, you know, there are different strategies. Another question here, which is,
but I mean, I understand what our chat guest, you know, is saying, and I'm not sure exactly what the situation is, but let's just assume that this is in a food service establishment. Yeah, the person can't do the work from home whenever they feel like it. So, yeah, I think we just again be clear up front about that, and then say, and there are other opportunities in our entire organization for you to work it a different way.
I would say not yet. You can't serve food yet.
There you go. Yeah, that's right. We're not
control option with a. Amazon was doing it a few years ago. They were doing deliveries by drones.
I know. Yeah.
So so much of it goes back to hiring, getting your hiring right, expectations, onboarding, training, all that good stuff. Let me circle back around though to. We're already closing in on our time here. It's insane.
How does that happen?
But when we talk about this idea of creating safe psychological spaces at work, because for me, that's everything. And we know from so much research, whether we're talking physical safety, we know that a ridiculously high percentage of people will not speak up when they see an unsafe work practice. Even when it involves their own safety, they won't speak up for all sorts of reasons. Maybe even doubly so when it comes to our mental health. So what do we need to do to create psychologically safe spaces for our employees? And let me tack on to that question, thinking of now the hybrid world we're working in. What do we need to do to create psychological safe spaces, whether we're working all in an office together or we're working remotely?
I would say engaged. Natasha was a wonderful guest that you had on, who gave us nothing but a million ideas of how to create that safe environment. And I think it really resonated with me, because it was all about just creating that opportunity to engage. The more that you are creating that opportunity, that stress level of not wanting to say that you're in danger, even if you are in danger, will allow that trust to happen, to say, you know what, I'm not coping really well this week. It's a non-coping week for me.
Yeah, to me, it comes to the notion of groupthink, right? For years, I was involved with a summer camp, and we used to do these things at the end of the day called a feeling check. And this is a bunch of adolescents, and the feeling check was, how are you feeling right now? And it was supposed to be a 20-minute meeting, and it would often go to 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, like it become a 6-hour meeting, because people are like, oh, now it's 2, and then my dog got sick, and we go into all this stuff, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's a time and a place. And when people are itching to get to bed because they got to serve the campers in the morning, there's a big problem. And so when I was kind of put in charge of it, I knew there were some people that went on for 45 minutes and other people that went on for 15 seconds. So I put the more seasoned, established people, we just usually start in a circle and go around. So I made the people who spoke for 15 seconds sit side by each, 2 or 3 of them in a row, and I always started the circle from there. So one person go 15 seconds, second goes 15 seconds, third goes 15 seconds, the fourth who's going to go 45 minutes, all of a sudden only goes 3 minutes now, because that's laying the groundwork, that's creating the culture. So the more we can establish that, hey, it is okay to say, wear a sign that says I'm having an off week, back off, or whatever, again, that particular issue is, and make it accepted, the quicker we're gonna get there.
Well, Sanjay, you know, and I know you're being kind of funny with the sign idea, but there are companies that do that with badges, with buttons, where you pick whatever button reflects your mental health state on that day. Yeah, what does that say?
Come on.
Party pooper?
Party pooper.
I've got mine in my back. Oh, I wish I had mine. Yeah, so because they want people to be honest and own up to having a bad day and send that message. It's okay to have a bad day. Dirt simple exercise, I think I've talked about this here before, that some of my clients do, is just a morning huddle where they go around and everybody just yells out how they're doing on a scale of 1 to 10. That's it. And they do that, and they want people to be 100% honest, and they do that so that they can identify who might be the weakest link that particular day. Like, who's the person who goes, you know, I had a crap, and so everyone goes, oh, Susan.
Lisa's using the right language. How do we normalize it? How do we normalize this behavior?
Yeah.
I go into quite a few meetings now on the virtual side where we'll start the meeting with a rename. So how are you coming into this meeting? You have your first name, and then what best describes how you are right now. You have the meeting, and you end the meeting by saying, can you update, if you can you update to how you are right now? And it's, you know, it's amazing that once you know that, going into your point, Sanjay, once you know and set that groundwork, how it changes the optics of that meeting as well.
Yeah, for sure. That's what, you know, it's so important, I think, to kick off your meetings in a fun way, in a right way, to put people in the present, right? Because we all know what that's like. You arrive at a meeting, you're rushed, and physically you might be there, but mentally, where are you? You're thinking about the fight you just had with your spouse on the phone, about the 87 emails you have to answer. You're not mentally there. So something that puts people mentally in those seats to be present is so important. Richard, what do you got?
I told you, I'm just here to hear Lori. I want to hear what else she has to say. I'm loving what you're saying. It's really from the benefits perspective. You know, there is the culture, and then there are the manifestations of those cultures, and that's in the 2 minutes we have left. I want to hear, you know, maybe something else about how culture then translates to the benefits that we provide to our employees.
Well, I'll end it by saying this: a benefit plan isn't about what you pay in premium. It's about what you're able to receive or give to your employees in benefit, right? The ability to protect an employee's risk of loss of life, risk of loss of income, risk of a catastrophic event. We know these, we live these every day. We see them in the news all over the place. How nice is it if you have that as part of your corporate plan, that I know if something happens to my employees, that they are protected. I have a plan in place for the mental health of my employees. I have a plan in place. See, and that is that culture. Culture is that plan, they're living it. If you have a plan, include that benefit as part of that cultural plan, because it will give you dividends.
Lori,
That
you're being
plan might
so
simply be a practice that we have. It may not be a benefit that I buy from someone who sells benefits. It might be a practice. It might be a way of doing things. But what I like about what you said, Lori, is it's a plan. Hopefully we don't need to invoke that plan, but we've got it when we need to.
and
You don't want your house to burn down, just because you have insurance on it. You don't want to
Right.
burn it down every year to get your investment. You want it in the event that
Yeah.
catastrophe happens.
Lori, if I can say this, it's so beneficial having you here with us this morning. It's just,
All right,
Even
I
me.
have to tell you, Michael, I had a virtual game of tic-tac-toe today and loved it. And that's
oh,
your fault.
awesome. Awesome. It's my fault.
It's your fault. I want to hear
It's
more
my
about
fault
that.
you enjoyed
offline.
yourself and had fun. Well,
I want to hear more about that offline later.
Michael's been sitting for 42 minutes to be able to say it was very beneficial. That's
I know. It's just the only reason I showed up this
Yeah.
morning. I was just waiting for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Lori, isn't it true that just to jump on what you were saying there, it's peace of mind. We're talking about mental health here too, right? But having those benefits, having a plan in place is peace of mind for the employer, and it's peace
Yeah.
of mind for the employee. I mean, think about that
Yeah.
from the employee's perspective. How much value, what price tag can you put on that as an employee where you go, well, at least like we're covered. If something horrible happens, if I get sick, if I get a long-term illness, we have that peace of mind that we know we're going to be okay. And imagine sending that message right on day one when we hire new
Kind of
employees.
a
in our
message
company.
of stability. We're going to be able to
message of-
maintain
yeah.
some stability.
I know
And-
we have
and
like
that simple
90
message,
seconds left.
hey,
I want to go. And we have 90 seconds left, and I want to open up a can of worms that I shouldn't be opening up. So I'm going to talk to you really quickly, and that is this, Lori. You're talking about what if, but I'm sure that a lot of the benefits deal with the proactive idea. Is how do we do prevention? How do we avoid the what ifs? And I mean, again, that's probably a whole different show. But
I think that's what we'll talk about next time we have Lori with us.
I'm happy to engage in that. And you're absolutely right. There's a lot of preventative stuff. That's why it's health and wellness, right? It is about encouraging people to be fit. It's encouraging them to contact that nutritionist. It's encouraging all of those items. So you're absolutely right. There are equal parts proactive ahead of time, as well as the equal parts of those risk mitigations.
Yeah, awesome.
You're going to
and
make
think
me
about
put another quarter in the Zoom machine pretty quickly. So I just want to wrap this up. What did you have to say, Michael, before
Oh, I
my
was just
quarter
gonna
runs
say,
out?
from a cultural point of view, again, think of the power in promoting your culture, in hiring your employees. When you sell that message, when you sell that idea, we truly care about our employees. We care about
Yep.
you, and
Yep.
we are going to have your back.
And that makes a huge statement as a recruiting tool as well, not just about the people you have, but about your reputation. So in 2 weeks, we're all going to get back. And Lori will still be here, I'm sure, because she's with us every time, but she may not be on the panel. But we have another amazing panelist. And if you know, we do. On May the 19th, if anybody out there knows Steve Brown from La Rosa's Pizza in Cincinnati, Ohio. Steve is a rock star in the human resources world, and Steve is going to be with us in 2 weeks. And he's going to talk about reset versus return, why organizations and HR should move forward as a reset instead of yearning to return and go back to our old patterns. So I can't wait to have that conversation with Steve. And virtual pizza for all, says Sanjay. Anything else, friends?
Thank you so much for having me. And
Thank you, Lori.
Lori,
Wow,
thank you
super.
so
Thank
much
you,
for
Lori.
joining us. And
Will you join
you're
us
great.
again at some point, Lori, so we can continue this conversation? All right.
Yeah, I think it would be very
Thank you.
beneficial.
Get out of here. Thank you, everyone.
Have a
And
good
guess
week.
what? We'll see you every other Wednesday. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Stay safe, everyone.